Good. First and foremost, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, that'd be really helpful for starters.
I am an attorney practicing in Nevada, primarily in Las Vegas. I also, though, do a lot of stuff in Reno, a lot of cases in Reno. I do generally civil litigation, but my expertise and most of what I do on a daily basis is represent real estate agents and brokers under their insurance E&O policies. So that is kind of the bulk of my day-to-day and what I do. And I love realtors and love to help them out and love to prevent the lawsuits whenever I can. And that's kind of what we're focusing on here today, I guess.
I'm one of those that's actually been fortunate enough to be on the other end of you helping us prevent. So I would like to ask a question in relation to that. So you do a lot of risk management, right?
Absolutely. Several of the insurance companies have learned over the years that it's much better for them to try to help prevent the lawsuits than deal with them after the fact. And they've got risk management programs. I am the risk management attorney for Nevada for a couple of different insurance companies. So if an agent has a question, they can call into the risk management hotline with their insurance company. The insurance company sends me an email with briefly what the description is. I reached out to the insured broker and we try to resolve the situation while it can still be resolved before it ends up in a lawsuit. The insurance company pays my time for that. The insured, of course, gets the benefit. And I would say that it's like 98% successful. I mean, very rarely, if we can get to something early, we're not able to resolve it and it still ends up in a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a bit about the white elephant in the room, which is, of course, COVID-19. And is that something that's coming up right now with frequency, especially since the outbreak here in the United States with regards to real estate transactions?
Yes, it is absolutely on everybody's mind. And of course, it came upon all of us quite suddenly, not something anybody was prepared to deal with, had dealt with before, anything like that. It's kind of a new thing for all of us. I personally have not seen any COVID-19 claims or lawsuits yet in Nevada. However, I do know they are being filed in other states, particularly California. And those claims relate to, they're kind of a variation in some extent on the mold claims. You sold me a home that was infected, only in this case it's infected with COVID-19. And so they're therefore suing. There's so many differences, though, in the COVID-19 virus and mold. And you can have potential liability and exposure just for showing somebody a property or, taking them in your vehicle to go look at properties or anything like that. Almost anything now is a potential exposure, anything that's not following the strict social distancing guidelines. And it's very difficult to follow all of those social distancing guidelines when you're showing a property. But it can still be done. And in those instances where there's not a good remote opportunity to review the property, you should still be doing it. You should still, though, protect yourself to the extent you can, not only physically from the virus, but legally from the potential consequences.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, do you see the National Association of Realtors or the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors doing anything to help protect realtors and buyers and sellers in this situation?
Generally speaking, the associations don't focus so much on risk management. Very rarely will you see them, draft a release or anything like that. And if they do, it's generally after the fact. They may come out with something specific, but I doubt it. Frankly, I doubt it. And I don't think we'll see anything anytime soon. I have been just kind of providing documentation to the realtors that I work with and the recommendations to some of them on kind of what they should be doing. First and foremost, no open houses. Nobody should be holding open houses right now. Nobody should be attending an open house. And if you can, view the property remotely. Yeah. Unfortunately, we are here in Nevada where the industry as a whole has so been open to technology for so long. And a lot of us remember 2007, 2006. There was a great period of time in the market when it was so crazy and sales were so hot that people weren't viewing houses. You put a property on the MLS and you had multiple offers within 20, 30 minutes. You took the time to drive out and actually see the property and it was already sold. So, I mean, you don't have to see the properties to view them. It's best, if everything is normal, it's best to see the properties in person, but you don't have to. And you can completely, make an offer and close a transaction without ever actually viewing the property in Nevada. And we are fortunate in that respect. And that is not the same situation in the vast majority of the country.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to some of these cases you're hearing about in other states, are these mostly residential, or are we also starting to see them in the commercial space as well?
The ones that I've seen so far are typically are in the residential area. That it can be in the commercial. Generally speaking, there is not there's not as much litigation generally on the commercial side. For whatever reason, people that buy and sell commercial stuff don't seem to be as litigious as the buyers and sellers of residential property. And that has probably got a variety of reasons behind it. But I don't expect there to be the volume in the commercial side, but the potential is still there. And anybody that is doing both commercial and residential or just commercial should still follow the guidelines that they can, and take precautions to protect themselves both physically and legally as they view properties.
The question of force majeure has come up, and that certainly has a particular definition in all of our minds. How does COVID-19 fit into force majeure in existing contracts, or even new contracts for that matter?
Yeah, well, force majeure is simply, the legal term of there was a reason that I could not comply with this contract that is completely outside of my ability to control. Both the Galvar purchase agreement and the contract purchase agreement that's used in Northern Nevada does not contain a specific force majeure clause. However, it is always a legal defense to you breach the contract. And I know that Galvar anyway has drafted a specific addendum that essentially puts the force majeure into a contract addendum and addresses the issue. Of course, it's an addendum. The parties don't have to sign it. I have reviewed it. I have seen it. Frankly, it's the best way to, I think, to consistently address the issue. Because if a seller, and it definitely protects the buyer, is who that addendum is designed to protect, and gives the buyer the option to either cancel the contract and protect their earnest money, or to just postpone the contract and wait and see what happens in 30 days. And of course, it protects them if they cannot get financing anymore because they've been laid off, which of course is a vast majority of people in Nevada right now, in Las Vegas specifically. And so I think it's good to address that. And it definitely is good for, if you're representing a buyer, communication is absolutely key here. Whether you're representing buyers, sellers, whoever you're representing, you need to have a deep conversation with whoever you're representing and ask them, how has COVID-19 affected you? How has it affected this transaction? Do you still want to go through with it? Do you still want to sell your house? Do you still want to have showings of your house? You can limit the showings through the MLS, make it appointment only or whatever. There's a variety of steps that can be taken, but it all starts with, what does the client want? And then you can assess if you can give your client what they want, and if so, how best to do that. But again, with the addendum specifically, if you're representing a seller, typically if a buyer doesn't close when they're supposed to close under the contract, the remedy for the buyer or the seller is, I'm keeping the earnest money. But of course, the seller or the buyer does not actually have the earnest money. The earnest money is sitting at the title company. And so then it becomes a fight with the title company over what happens to that earnest money. And generally, even before this, my recommendation is that's usually not a fight worth having, because it ends up sitting at the title company. The title company ends up filing a lawsuit. They end up keeping the whole earnest money, and neither buyer nor seller gets any. So if it's truly a case where you're representing the seller and they're like, no, if they're not going to close, I want to keep the earnest money, maybe just draft a different addendum and offer to split the earnest money or something like that. But unless and until a document, either an addendum or joint escrow instructions or something gets sent that's been signed by both parties to the title company, that earnest money is staying with the title company. And the uncertainty of that is not good for anybody. So if the contract needs to be canceled, cancel it. And if you can cancel it and split the earnest money, great. If it's canceled and the earnest money goes back to the buyer, then the seller is actually still better off, because at least they know now and can move on with trying to find another potential buyer.
Well, so let's go back to that addendum for just a minute. So you've read it and you've interpreted it. Is it your understanding that the main function of that addendum allows the buyer to automatically extend closing for any reason at this time? Because we are in unprecedented times right now. Or does there need to be a financial hardship?
No, that it actually has got a couple of different check marks, and one says I can't get financing, and the other just basically says we're extending it for 30 days. I don't know what's going on. So it definitely, I mean, it's drafted to specifically address COVID, but no, I mean, the specific language in we're continuing this for 30 days is just we're continuing it for 30 days.
Okay.
So they do not have to have any specific hardship at this time.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
How do you
But again, you don't have to sign that addendum. If a different addendum works better for your people, then draft a different addendum.
I can see that, possibly this could put sellers in a bit of risk, because if they're in a situation where they need to sell their property in a certain time frame, maybe because they're not able to make their mortgage payments because of a financial hardship, that, there's both sides to consider, and every transaction is different. So the clarification, and also as real estate agents, we can also, like you said, prepare addendums that actually fit that transaction best. But use
Correct. If that addendum fits your needs, I recommend signing it. And I think you could probably even sign it and change the time period if you want to say, hey, we don't want to go 30 days, let's only go 20 days. I think you can still use the addendum with that modification. And the reason why I say it's best to use it if you can is just because that's the form that everybody is going to get used to seeing. That's the form that Galvar's done. And that'll give you some protection if an issue comes up later to say, Galvar put out this form and I used it. But don't do it just automatically. Make sure that it fits your needs. And if it doesn't, don't use it.
Okay.
How do you see COVID-19 changing real estate? Do you see that this is going to be a stake in the ground for real estate transactions in future? Will it also make real estates, realtor associations, etc., look at not just COVID-19, but also look at other possible cases that could come up that may have a material impact on transactions?
I think it may be a little early to say right now, like if they're going to specifically change rules on how we do open houses or anything like that. I don't think so. I think this is a very unique situation. I mean, the flu's been around a long time. There's the colds, common colds. I mean, there's been infectious diseases around for a long time, and the real estate market has still gone on. I don't expect this to have a really specific, I don't expect new rules or come out to deal with COVID-19 long term. I think this is primarily a short-term situation. I'm hoping so, like everybody else. And the other thing is it's so difficult to deal with it truly on a long-term basis. because it's invisible. I mean, like I said, I kind of in the beginning compared it a little bit to the mold cases, but mold, generally speaking, you can see, or there's at least some staining or some indication that there may be mold in the property. There's not with COVID. Nobody has any idea, and it's not something that just is in the home. It's in the people that are in the home and on the people, and that's really who is more at risk of spreading it, is the people that are in the house, not the home itself. So it's a difficult and entirely new situation, but I don't necessarily think that there's going to be a lot of long-term effects.
I love that point you made, because if you want to talk practices for real estate agents and brokers right now, that's definitely one of the best practices that's being adopted widely. That when we do have to schedule meetings inside the home, because you have inspections, you have appraisals, we are requesting, or at least I know most of the industry is going towards requesting that the house be empty at the time that that inspector or that appraiser goes in, just for every person's safety. Because like you said, the person is more a host, we think or believe, than the actual property.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so those are best practices. And, for the real estate agents, so you have to meet, a home inspector at the property, and obviously they have to go in and do the inspection. You don't necessarily have to. I mean, open the door, stand in the front yard, do what you need to do. I mean, unless you have to be in the home, don't be in the home would be my recommendations for best practices.
Do you have any other best practice tips you could give us?
Um, like I said, try to view, first and foremost, encourage your buyers, especially if you're representing buyers and they're just looking at properties. The first place they should go to is the internet. View everything that they can as remotely as possible. If they find a property they fall in love with and they say, I really need to see this property myself in person, find out if it's empty. If it's empty, that's preferable. If it's occupied, can it be empty at least long enough for you guys to view it? Go ahead of time. Don't travel together. I know it used to be real common practice for realtors to say, I'll pick you up. Don't do that. Have them travel separately in their own vehicle to the property. Meet together at the property. Tell them, do not bring your whole family. Do not bring your kids. Do not bring grandma. You need to see the property yourself. If it's a husband and wife, okay, then two of them. But I would definitely say, I'm not showing the property to more than two people. And then, have them come in and maybe go to the property before they're going to be there. Disinfect the doorknob, take your sanitizing wipes with you, disinfect the lockbox, open the windows maybe. Fresh air is always great. I don't know that there's a lot of scientific backing behind fresh air is helpful, but it can't hurt for sure. If you can, air it out a little bit. Do what you can to protect yourself. Try to make sure that they're protecting themselves. But go ahead and show the property if that's what you have to do. But kind of take every precaution you can.
Gives a whole new meaning to realtor care packages when you're showing buyers property, right? We used to pack them like water bottles and now they're sanitizer and Lysol wipes.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing, and hopefully we're going to continue to have enough of those.
And if it's a really good client's toilet paper.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Well, Catherine, we really want to thank you for your time. This has been really insightful. Pam, did you have any other questions for Catherine?
No, I don't. I really think that we've covered everything for now. I think that every day there's new information and unfolds more just for us to address. I don't think the conversation is over. I just believe that it's just unfolding.
Absolutely. It is a very fluid situation, and it's a very fluid situation nationally. Back again to being things that we're grateful for. I think in especially Clark County, Nevada, one of the big things we need to be thankful for is that our recorder's offices are still open. We're recording electronically. It is a mess in even California because they they literally cannot close a transaction. Even if all the parties are together and want to, their recorders aren't recording. And so we need to be grateful for the things that we have, and focus on, moving forward with the technology that we have, and how do we just do it, as safely as we can and a little differently than we did before.
Well, thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Good afternoon. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.